We are live, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the last day of May 2020. And of course, we know what has gone on in the last 24 and 36 and 72 hours. And as we get into today's show, we're going to tell you that up here in northern Minnesota, North Dakota, it's even more extreme than that. But we decided after conversation, we are going to have our program today because we think it's important to keep some regularity. You are our friends, and we hope that we are your friends. And we think friends should be together at times like this. And for our European friends, we just hope that we can share a little bit of the semblance that is crazy. And as Chili and I are, there is some regularity, and there are some regular people here in the United States. So we're waiting for our guest here today. We were hoping that he was going to talk to us from the beach. He happens to be down in Destin, Florida today, but we couldn't get a good signal there. So he's on his way to the condo. He'll be with us in a couple minutes. In the meantime, of course, we want to introduce you to everybody. And I got to get my fingers correct here. So here, the number 2 man in the operation from Chili Falls, West Virginia. No, I don't know. He's from Virginia, somewhere on the East Coast with the old part of the country. His name is Chili Falls and Chili's Cruises. Please say hi to Mr. Chili Falls.
Hi.
And say hi back.
Chili Falls.
On this corner, weighing in at 105 something, either kilograms, micrograms, pounds, ounces, 105 ounces. He's
drinking again.
He goes way back. He's always got his friend Sherry with him at these events. And his name is no, that's the 2 o'clock. Remember, we always get a 2 o'clock phone call, and that's that one. He is from London, England. You can see that he was evicted from the I can show you the light there. If you see that light in the window there to the right, that was his former home, and he always keeps a picture of it behind him. Let's say a big greeting for Mr. Pete Hall. There he is back there. Say hi, Pete.
Yeah, hi, Pete. As Chili would say, I'm the one that speaks funny. Cheers. But as you said, John, crazy times. So, we're watching what's happening from the UK, obviously. We don't want to talk about it too much. We're not going to get involved in any kind of politics or anything, but really crazy times on both sides of the Atlantic, to be honest with you. So
it is, and it's really sad. And just to preface it, here up in I'm on the border of Minnesota and North Dakota. Our big cities are all in North Dakota, Fargo and Grand Forks. And in Grand Forks on Tuesday, as like a preface to all of this stuff that's going on, a policeman and a sheriff were serving an eviction notice in Grand Forks. It was going very routinely. The gentleman walked into the bedroom, and he had no history of crime or being a bad guy or anything. Walked in the bedroom, came out with guns ablazing, shot the woman that lived there with him, and killed the policeman and wounded the deputy. And that's what started our Tuesday, just before all of these things that became major worldwide news in Minneapolis, and then that you've seen go all around the world. So everybody is hurting. Of course, the churches are all closed, and so there's that element to it too. Our church service comes to us over the internet, every week, and today is a big day in the church here. It's Pentecost. This is when everybody was speaking with flames on their head. This might be Chuck coming in, so it is good to go, he says. Okay, so I'm going to say sign in. He should be.
While he's coming in, John, I'll say hello to Bonnie and Gretchen.
Good.
From my show, and Brenda from over in Norway. So, hi, Brenda. Glad to have you with us again. I hope it's not too cold in Norway. Is it cold this time of year in Norway? I don't even know.
It's gorgeous in Norway. Fantastic.
And Emily's with us too. Hi, Emily.
Hi, Emily. How you doing?
From New York.
Yeah. Hi, Brenda. Norway. I've been to Norway. I've been to Oslo. Absolutely love the country. Beautiful place. Yeah. Emily's from New York, as we know. Hi, Emily from New York. So good they named it twice. I'm hoping Chuck is going to log in, and so we can add him.
He should be there now, Pete.
Is he there? 1 second. I can't see him. He's not here. Chuck's not here in our StreamYard, put it that way.
Yeah, just a moment.
Yeah, just let him know that.
Just a few technical glitches. We'll get by it.
We will do. We will do. So as soon as he...
As John said, folks, in case you're wondering about this, our friend that's going to be with us today was out on the beach, and I couldn't get enough signal, so they had to try to maneuver back to the condo. So I'm sure there's going to be a whole story about that before it's over with. But anyway, he's back at the condo in Destin, Florida, and hopefully he'll have a signal and be able to come on and join us.
Nikki.
Hey, and there's Nikki. Hi, Nikki. How you doing this afternoon?
And guys, you know, I'm from the UK, so I'm really looking forward to hearing about blues music. And you're talking about a potential blues cruise and everything as well. So it sounds, you know, I don't know much about it, to be honest with you. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. And I've also got a great story because I did a little bit of research about Chuck. And I see that Chuck's written books. He looks like an incredible guy. And he teaches youngsters at baseball, I think, as well.
Karate and baseball. He's a second-degree black belt. And he learned out in California from a very famous gentleman that was in a lot of movies. And of course, one of his best friends recently passed away was the comedian Gary Shandling, who, you know, Pete might not know so well, but Chili knows who Gary. Oh, and here we go.
Here we go. There comes Chuck.
Chuck should be coming online here. I see a black screen so far, but we're waiting for the. We're getting closer.
That looks like Chuck to me. Hey. All right, we'll do some technical testing here, folks. So just bear with us.
That's not me.
It's not you.
But it's me. Okay. What's going on?
Good afternoon.
Go.
I'll say good afternoon from the UK. First time I've spoken to you, I loved watching you. I watched your show, by the way, with the Beaker Street Blues Band live when you did it with the guys. And I'm sure the guys are going to talk about another one of those as well. And I just loved it. I really did. I had a great time watching it. So, hello, I'm Peter, and I'm in London, as you can see.
Great. Nice meeting you. Thanks for watching. It was fun.
And Chuck, this is Chili. I met you before when we did the show with Mr. John. So we've got a nice audience of folks literally from all over the world. So don't get nervous on us the way John does.
And I just saw a comment that came by, and I think we'll probably start with that, or we'll hold that comment for just a little bit. But that was an interesting thing because she talked about the Blues Brothers, and we're going to talk about what the Blues Brothers music is, and then what blues music is, because they're two completely different things. And I make that mistake too, because I'm actually more of a fan of the Blues Brothers music to listen to minute by minute, as opposed to the blues. And we're going to talk about that. It's an interesting differentiation. That's my big word of the day. But first, we got to share a little bit because Chuck had an experience on the beach. And Chuck, you got to share what happened with your neighbors this morning, because our listeners are going to find that very interesting with your 10-mile beach.
Oh, well, we just went to the, we're down in Destin, Florida. So we went to the beach, and we always go to the, it's a national park beach, you know, so it's nice. And it's not a bunch of hotels and resorts there. It's just a beach, and it's huge, miles long. So we, and of course now it's busy down here. There's a lot of people. And so we park the car, we go down, we find a nice little spot on the beach, next to like nobody, and people are doing a decent job of, you know, the so-called social distancing and keeping apart, but people do have a tendency to group together for some reason. You know, maybe it's because they don't want to walk, so they come down and just go, oh, this is close, so we'll park ourselves right here. Then it gets to be crowded. Well, we walked a ways, and then 3 young girls, 20 somethings, decide the beach is too big, so they need to come and sit by us. We don't know them. And they were 6 feet, 7 feet away, 8 feet. But it's a monster beach. And my wife said, really, I mean, you have to sit right next to us? It's a huge beach. And they looked at us like we were just from Mars or something. They could care less.
Yeah.
And they just went ahead and set up. So we took the 2 minutes that it took, and we moved. They hadn't even set up yet. They could have just easily have said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we'll go sit over here," but no. So it's really funny how people, are quick to forget that 100,000 people just died in 3 months because of a contagious virus. Thing happened.
And that's so true. And it's like, and the joke that we would make is, of course, that never happens on cruise ships because cruisers always look out for each other, and we always social distance to the extent that the boat allows us to, but just naturally. But I think I do believe that we just always find that cruisers are just a cut above in niceness. I've been on 5 different cruise lines, and I'm 4 of them at least, the people are so nice all the time that they would just naturally have socially distanced. And it'll be interesting to see when we get back to sea here now how that's going to play out. So, but I just thought it was funny that Chuck had that experience right away this morning.
I've got a question, John. That's okay for Chuck.
Yeah.
The Beaker Street Blues Band, Chuck. Can you please tell me about the band and the guys in it?
Did we?
Chuck, are you with us? Are you there, buddy?
It looks like he is frozen.
Do you know what?
Might have lost Chuck.
When I ask a question,
see, Pete, you intimidate every one of my guests. You scare the bejesus out of them, and it's the end of the line. I know how to solve this problem, though. For whatever reason, we got to get Chuck to turn off his video, and then his audio will flow through, and we'll just have a great conversation. So yeah, let's see if
hopefully we're going to get Chuck back, because
I'm going to just message him here and say, hey.
Yeah, because what I don't know, I mean, all our viewers watching us, I mean, the blues music, the Beaker Street Blues Band, I don't know too much about them, to be honest with you. So I want Chuck to come back and tell us more about them. I mean, that's his band. That's a photograph we got of the band. It's not a great shot, I know, and I know Chuck is a great sax player. That's another great photograph, and I've got a few other photographs I've taken from Chuck's website, his Facebook page, and I'm going to ask a few questions about those as well. So hopefully Chuck will come back and he'll talk to us about the band and about the idea of the blues cruise we talked about.
And in the meantime, folks, this is live streaming, and sometimes live streaming, things don't go the way you hope that they go, and we're kind of in that position. So we're kind of stuck right at the moment, waiting for Chuck to come back, and Pete is pulling his lack of hair out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
okay, I'm going to do something totally selfishly since we got a second. Brenda from Norway, if you would please, in the comments, would you put in your favorite cruise ship and your favorite port of call? Normally, I get people on and tape them doing that, but if you just put it in the comment, and I might use it on my show one day. So
we're getting lots of laughter now because obviously Chuck has disappeared. But these are crazy times. So, John, can you tell us about this? Because I put on this that...
Okay. He figured out what the problem was. When he got back there, he didn't switch to the Wi-Fi in the premises. He was still on the cell phone tower that he was having the trouble with.
So he's got to
resign. So he's coming back in here, and he should be good, and we'll be good to go. So that'll be great. But tell me your question, and I can answer for Chuck, because we have kind of been bosom buddies since 1967. He's much younger than I am. He's 2 years younger than I am. So I am the old guy, and he's the young guy, and I'm the technical one, and he's the performer, and I do all the work, and he gets all the girls.
My question was, as someone who knows nothing about the band, was how did they start? Who are they? You know, and what do they do? Really?
Okay, well, the short story with that is they all have varied and different backgrounds, and because Franklin, Tennessee, about 1990, started to be a mecca for people from either New York or California and from all over the world that just wanted to get out of the rat race, and also because it was an aging population. It wasn't, you know, the young people anymore. It was, let's see, 1990, I was like 41 years old. Other people were in their 40s, 45, and they were just done with all of that pressure and stuff. And Nashville was just this welcoming place where you could go and you could buy a house on 5 acres of land for $200,000 and thought you would gain paradise. Now those homes that are on 5 acres of land are $600,000. But so it was a time when everybody just came there, and we did too. I went there and had a 14 sleeper bed and breakfast, but Chuck stayed there. I came back up here to Minnesota, but Chuck stayed there. And so all of these guys kind of did that too. And all of a sudden, famous, very famous, not country bands ended up headquartering out of Nashville. Hey, Chuck, it's looking much better. I'm just bringing the story up to date as to how all of these, he came and he went. How these, but all of a sudden, a lot of famous bands started headquartering out of Nashville because, you know, there's a whole bunch of territory to park your tour buses, and you can rent a giant auditorium to do your 3 weeks of rehearsal for the tour, you know, for $1,000 a week rather than $10,000 a week. So it became the mecca for all of these bigger, older units to kind of move to. Chuck was right there, and all of a sudden they realized, hey, we got a world-class saxophone player, you know, that's just right here and available. And on top of that, he's a relatively nice guy. That has changed over the last years, I want to tell you. But in the early years, Chuck was a relatively nice guy. So they just kind of brought him into their circle, and so everybody that and and now what's happened is it reversed the other way, because it seems that if you've been in music long enough, you gravitate to the blues. And by doing that, Chuck just saw an opportunity to say, hey, I like the blues, you like the blues. Hey, let's put a little gig together. Let's put a little group together and play some gigs around town for our own enjoyment. And out of that has morphed the Beaker Street Blues Band. And I'm going to let Chuck pick the story up from right there before he disappears again. Oh, he's contemplating now.
Well, you know, right. And you know, used to be a nice guy. That's just true. That's just
I'm sorry.
You stay in music long enough, and you know. Hey,
hey, he takes that because we're bosom buddies. I mean, I'm not.
Chuck, you can hit him. You can hit him, yeah? Tell us about your band, please, Chuck.
I know. So, we, you know, and the day may come when we even. Pardon me.
No, go ahead.
We do a lot of blues, but we do a lot of blues influenced music. Are we there? Are you hearing me?
Yeah,
we can. Yeah.
How's that audio?
You're good.
Yes. I would say we've as we've man, 16 years into it now, so we're doing not only old style blues, but even anything that's blues influenced, you know. And one of the most notable things is we're doing some Cream music. So, you know, you've got a British rock band that was influenced by the blues. Obviously, Eric Clapton comes out of that, and there's no more blues guy than that. So we'll be doing anything from we do a BB King medley, and then we go right into White Room or something by the Cream. So we're very diverse now. Anything that was influenced by the blues is what we're doing. But still a lot of traditional blues. But the band's really having a lot of fun with all this new material. We just worked up God Bless the Child, the old Billie Holiday song, but we do Blood, Sweat, and Tears version. And, you know, these classics. So we're doing, if we're doing cover music other than straight blues, it's going to be something incredibly classic. Whip and Post by the Allman Brothers. These are all difficult songs to pull off, you know, in a big way, but we have the players, you know, where John said something earlier, you know, if you play long enough, you become a blues player, but it's like we're old enough to look like blues players now. So we fit the part.
Memphis Blues.
But we're really enjoying it. And, you know, it looks like we're going to become an online blues band.
Yeah.
As it turns out.
The question that Pete said, Chuck, is would you consider yourself a Memphis blues band?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think, Chuck, you're going to have to just kill your...
I'm having trouble with my audio on this side.
Kill your video, and then your audio will be okay. Just kill your video. Kill your camera. See, it says mute. Stop your camera down there at the bottom.
Yeah. Would it be any better if I was...
No, just stop your
on my
camera.
laptop instead of the phone?
But just stop your camera, and then we'll be hearing you fine. There you go. Now everything should work fine for you. We'll hear you fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can
we
you
can
hear?
hear
Can you hear us okay now?
See if that's any better.
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Can you hear us?
because I want to talk about this.
Yeah, it's still a little choppy. I'm going to see if I can go on my laptop. Maybe it'll be better on the laptop.
Okay.
All right, we'll wait for you in a
Okay.
minute.
We will wait for you. It's worth waiting. It really is. So, John, tell us about while Chuck tries to sort out getting himself back on board again. The Beaker Street Blues Band, a gig or a jam on June the 20th at the King Bee Guitar Center in Franklin, Tennessee.
Well, of course, one of the guitar players in the band owns the King Bee Guitar Center, and it's more than just a little guitar store. There's a stage on the one end, and actually, it was built that way not for performance, but so that bands can actually, come there and set up and try a variety of guitars and amplifiers in a big enough room that you can, make them howl. And so with that, and you can kill, there we go, you're chilling Chuck off. So with that, then with the band not playing for these months, Chuck said, hey, is there any way that we can, do a live broadcast and make it work through the internet and do this? And and it was just at that time that Chili was talking about how somebody's got something open.
That's probably Chuck. You've got your phone open. If you've got your phone going,
No, I shut the phone down.
shut the phone down. Then it's actually hearing bits of it as well. That's why.
I hear you guys perfectly now.
Yes, we hear you
Everything
good
working?
too. Yeah.
All right. So anyway, Chuck, and it was just at that time that Chili happened to suggest StreamYard at the same moment that Chuck's friend, who is a video editor out in California, suggested StreamYard. And so in combination, we worked our butts off for about 10 days to do a reverse show. Instead of having you in London and you in Virginia and you in Destin and me in Minnesota, we had all the cameras in one room broadcasting back to StreamYard so that I could produce it in Minnesota and send it out to Facebook and YouTube.
Right. I don't know where that sound's coming from. It might be coming from you, John. But when hearing there's weird cracking noise and stuff like that. So, Chuck, you're going to be doing the gig on the 20th of June, yeah? The King Bee Guitar Center.
Yes, 20th. So that'll be our next one. The first one was, like John said, we put a lot of time in because it was first time trying to figure out some of the details and make it go smoothly. And it went great, though. Our response was unbelievable. So it's very interesting. A lot of people are doing, online stuff now. But one thing I realized, our group, it's a really good format for this band. We seem to it really works well. And I don't know, maybe it's a fairly interesting group, I think. I mean, we do so much different material, and the personalities in the band are, we've been around a while, so I think if I've learned anything from age, it's you become a little more interesting. It seems like if you're still playing, I'm always so amazed by all my bandmates, how interesting they are to me. So if they're interesting to me, they must be interesting to other people. These guys always amaze me, not only how good they play, but just their personalities and their wit, and it's hilarious. It's really fun band to be in.
And some of your guys play on the cruise ship as well.
We have our keyboard player specifically. I know the bass player has done cruise ships. He was with Steppenwolf for like almost 30 years. I know they did cruises. But Joe, the keyboard player, he's I think he maybe worked for Royal Caribbean or something, but he's done a lot of cruise ship work with bands and as a single. Very experienced cruise ship guy. Yeah, I think he was kind of before all of this, everything happened in the world with the virus and thing, we were working on, promo for Joe to try to get us as a band booked on the cruise ship. So that was all kind of going towards that way, but then a little bit dead in the water right now, but maybe we'll get around to that yet. That would be fun.
And you guys, you're all talking about organising potential blues.
Chuck, can you turn the volume of your speakers down just a little bit? That
Okay.
might be circling back, just so you can barely hear.
Okay, got it. Turning them down. Is that better?
It sounds better. Yeah, Chuck,
Okay,
you're talking about maybe doing a blues cruise. That sounds fantastic idea.
Yeah, so it would be fun to do, something like that on a blues cruise. I think that we'd be received very well. The band is, we're good entertainers. Everybody's done it so long. We all sing, and it's the kind of band where whoever's singing, it's sort of their band for a minute, take over, and we just pass it around. There's no real one focal point. Everybody's very strong. So I think that on a cruise ship, I believe we'd be received well. It's a pretty entertaining show band. The showmanship part, I think a lot of that comes, with age too, but it was my first experience going up into Canada with these Canadian show bands right out of high school. It's the very first thing I was learning how to play and everything, but the very first thing I learned was you got to be a showman. And I was taught that by the Canadians. And Canadians, especially at that time, they were master showmen. These show bands were very entertaining, and I learned a lot about it. And I think the rest of the guys in my band, I don't know, that might be sort of more my niche, but they're all good entertainers in their own way. And I think Joe, in particular, the keyboard player who does the cruise ships, he's an excellent entertainer because he's got used to doing that.
And he's obviously one hell of a keyboard man too.
Yeah, he's a monster. Everybody in the band. I'm always kind of amazed listening to them, and seasoned players. It's a privilege to be on stage with them, and we just simply haven't ever stopped. And I've always believed that I don't care what you're doing, you keep doing it long enough, you can't help but get really good at it. I just don't care what it is, anything. You do something long enough, and sort of almost unbeknownst to you, you're now really good at it. It just happens. It has to happen. And we all have different passions, and I don't care what it is. It works.
Well, I think it sounds a great idea. I really do. And if you guys could organise, we're posting everywhere, and I'd love to be on board with it. I really would.
Hey, Pete, do you have something open?
No, I don't.
I'm getting feedback from someplace.
Yeah, because it won't be me, because you're hearing me getting feedback. I don't know where it's coming from, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I
Sounds
can't.
perfect on my end.
Quick question, myself. I noticed that you do baseball.
Yes, I do all kinds of different things. I in 1990, I got involved in youth baseball. My son, turns out, he's a really good ball player. He was a natural musician too, but he didn't care to pursue that. He wanted to play baseball, so I started coaching. And about 3 years into coaching my son when he was young, I kind of melded another one of my interests in there, and I've been involved in martial arts for now 42 years. At that time, about 20, and I started coaching my teams in a very martial arts way. with more the way, which it's all led to these crazy things. I've written a script now called The Way of Baseball, and it's more like my teams were more like a karate class than because you're teaching kids more than the sport. Respect and discipline.
I have a baseball story from an Englishman. Can you believe that? A baseball story, yeah? And see this?
Yes.
This is a signed Cuban national shirt. Can you believe? Now, how rare is something like that? And it's I don't know if you know the chap, by a Cuban baseball player called Rodney Castillo.
What's his name?
Rodney Castillo from the Boston Red Sox.
Oh.
And I'll tell you the very, very quick story. I don't want to bore everyone. I'm going to tell you a very quick story. I'm going to put this on as well, yeah? But I was in Cuba on holiday, and I got invited to my first ever baseball game. I ended up on a boat with 50 Canadians and me, the only Brit. We turned up, and I had a website at the time, a sporting website, and I had a mug, and it was called the Lucky Mug. Wherever this mug went, people were successful. Anyway, Rodney Castillo was playing for Cuba at the time, and he was their main guy for a team called Ciego de Avila that had never won the championship in Cuba. I got offered, because he was getting paid so little money, their main guy, I bought this for $50 to help him, basically, cash. That was his Cuban shirt, his Cuban national shirt. He needed the money. I watched the game. Ciego de Avila won the game. I got invited on the pitch with everybody, yeah? And I then took a photograph of me and Rodney Castillo holding this mug. Yeah? The story is with this Chuck, yeah? Ciego de Avila that year won the Cuban championship for their first time in their history.
Oh, wow.
A mug, I think. And Rodney Castillo, who was getting paid no money and sold his Cuban shirt for $50, the next year signed a contract with the Boston Red Sox for $60 million. How incredible is that? But
overnight success.
That's my baseball story, you know. So
it's a good one.
To have a Cuban national shirt, and that is a signed Ciego de Avila.
Oh, yeah.
Number 38. That's
great.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Okay, Pete, I'll give you $65 for it.
Worth something, isn't it? And apparently, he's not in the first team. He's going to get paid so much money. He's in the other team, the second team, for some reason, and he's being paid like $10-15 million a year. And it's being paid too much money to be in the first team. So there's all kind of chaos with it. So he's actually not actually playing first team baseball for the Boston Red Sox. I'm not sure if I'm spoiling that, by the way, guys. I guess you're Queen fans.
Hey, John, click off your audio for a second.
My audio?
Yeah.
You mean mute my microphone?
Yeah, mute your mic for a second.
Chuck, can you explain this?
No. There's no explanation for that. Okay, so
what you're wearing at the moment to stay safe.
Yes, that's exactly right. When I go out now, I wear that. No, actually, I sold that, but I've done several women's self-defense seminars, and I bought that suit. It's called the Red Man suit. It's a professional gear that you use, and it's basically after you've taught people some techniques, they can pretty much wail on you, and you don't get all beat up, but. Yeah, that was a fun one.
I see. You need to take that suit and sell it to John to protect him when he's out in the fields with the pot that he grows.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what that is. But I still do the seminars occasionally, but I don't use the Red Man suit anymore. I just use bags and stuff. I've got. You kind of refine things as you go, but that was a lot of fun. I used to use it in my martial arts class sometimes to let kids really try their kicks out. You can take a pretty good hit with that gear on.
You flashed up a picture of Chuck and Gary Shandling a couple of times. Chuck, you might want to let us know how it is that Gary Shandling, I know he's into sports or was before his untimely death. How is it that the two of you hooked up?
How did we hook up?
Yeah.
Well, that's a long story. That's a 38-year, almost 40-year-old story. But I always think of it this way. When I was, early 20s, mid 20s, I walked through a lucky door. I moved to LA. Well, I'd been in LA for about a year, went down to New Orleans for a year and a half. And when I came back to LA, I rented a house in Encino on a little side street in the normal part of town, right next door to Gary Shandling. And Gary this was 1978, and Gary hadn't been heard of yet. He was just starting a stand-up comedy career. He had done a little bit of writing on TV for Sanford and Son and stuff, but he wanted to pursue stand-up, and that's when I met him. So no one knew Gary. And the cut to the chase, I basically, over the next several years, watched someone become famous. Every step of the way, I was like a wingman. I saw how it's done. I saw the discipline it takes. I saw Gary, apply that and write every day just for the sake of doing it. And next thing you know, I'm backstage at the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson with Gary Shandling. It's just an amazing thing. But I saw how he did it, and I learned quite a bit from him on process. And on top of that, just one of the best guys there was. A good guy.
Did you get to meet Johnny Carson too?
Oh yeah, Johnny Carson, Fred DeCordova, Doc Severinsen, everybody. I met Jimmy Stewart back there. I met Little Richard. Because Gary ended up. I went with him every time, even when he first. I remember telling Gary was your typical neurotic. How was the show, man? Was it? And what did you think? It was like, oh my God. Well, we couldn't be more different. I'm a northern Minnesota farm boy meets very dysfunctional Jewish boy from Tucson, and neurotic as you can be. I referred to him as my, quirky, eccentric brother. He, like John and I are that close too, but we're kind of from the same cloth. We're both farm boys from Minnesota. So, but Gary was so quirky, and we really became close. It was a very interesting thing. But anyway, was there a question there and I got off?
No, it's fine. It's fine. But the question was, how did you end up with him being part of your book or writing the foreword?
Well, the book, so we become good friends and all this and that and the Tonight Show and da-da-da-da-da. And, all of a sudden I've got kids and I'm married. So Gary, he knows my kids from day one. He was Uncle Gary to them. And we started thinking about moving to Tennessee. Somebody said, I miss Gary Shandling. Yes, he was fantastic. And to raise our kids, and not that I didn't like being in LA and Redondo Beach and all, but we just thought, well, let's do that. So we moved to Franklin, Tennessee, and that's when Philip started playing baseball, and he was 6. And I love baseball. In high school, I was a pretty good athlete, but I just got more interested in music, and but huge Minnesota Twins fan, a huge baseball fan, love baseball. Not a football guy. Love baseball. I'll watch baseball all night, every night. So I was so happy when Philip loved baseball. So I started coaching, and I didn't know anything about coaching in 1990. I knew nothing. But like I said earlier, I started applying my martial arts philosophy. Well, this led to the book. People started realizing I was a different kind of coach, and people are going to me, you should write a book. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to write a book. I have no clue how to write a book. No clue. Well, other people in my life did have a clue. My buddy Ken McDonald from up in Crookston, and my other friend Jim Vickery, who has now passed on too, Crookston boy, big author, great author. Jim Vickery, just a really good author and a wilderness man, lived out in a cabin, remote cabin in Ely, Minnesota for 30 years, no running water. Minnesota. He's like a wilderness guy. They encouraged me to write the book. So then I started writing the book, and they gave me advice on how to do it, and I mentioned it to Gary Shandling, and Gary goes, fascinating. I'm going to write the foreword. he just spit it out. I didn't ask him. I never would have thought. He just said, "Yeah, I want to write the foreword." So then 6 years later, how long I wrote on that book, because I don't know.
Chuck writes real slow. We might point that out.
Well, I mean, and plus I typed it all out, and I think I was up to 52 words a minute in Mrs. What was her name? The typing teacher. We typed to music.
Oh yeah, remember her arms? Remember her arms?
It was.
Yeah.
I'll get the name before we go here, done, and I can't remember her name. But anyway, it's not a great typist, but I got the thing done, and so I had the two pieces of advice from my buddy Jim, the author. Spend a half an hour a day is what I would do. Just sit down. That's your writing time, whether you write or not, and that'll get you going. Well, he was so right about that. That was the discipline of it. And of course, I kind of already knew this, but I just wasn't thinking of it. But Jim reminded me, and then Gary gave me the other piece, write what you know. So I wrote what I know about, and it was martial arts / baseball, and what I had learned about behaviors with parents and their kids and that dynamic, and what a struggle it was for these young parents and coaches to not get too crazy. And that's what I wrote the book about. How to Play Baseball, which Gary titled the book. He says, I think it's just called How to Play Baseball. Simple. And then I came up with the subtitle, A Parent's Role in Their Child's Journey. And that's, Gary reviewed my chapters, as did Kenny and Jim and other people. Got the book done. By the time Gary got the foreword written, he was not in the best place in his life. Crazy things in the business had happened. He was, big betrayals and lawsuits, and at the end of his life was not as happy as when I first met him. And you'll see that in the documentary, if you ever watched the documentary on HBO, the Zen Diaries of Gary Shandling. I'm in the first part, which is the joyous part. Part 2 is when the wheels come off a bit. It's just sad, but I could see it happening. I just could see it happening. I knew it was happening. I was with him a lot in the last years, would visit him, and we had talks, but nothing you could do. It was just going to be the way it was going to be. And he ends up dying. Well, he ended up dying at the age I am now. I'm 66. That's when Gary died, at 66. But, it was a big gift meeting Gary, and his foreword in my book is very meaningful now. He sums up in a page and a half kind of our relationship, and it's funny, it's true, how we met at 2 a.m, and I'm coming home from a gig, and he was coming home from a gig, and that's how we met, and became lifelong friends. So,
great story.
He was a big fan of the music too. He would come out and see my band all the time in LA, and we were close.
What was your musical influences? You don't mind me asking.
Pardon me?
What were your musical influences?
Mine? Oh my gosh. Early on, I would say it was a lot of all the British groups, period. I mean, all of them.
I paid
yes,
him.
I absolutely. Well, yeah. Well, there's no question about it. I can tell you right now, I remember being in 5th grade. We were still living on the farm, and I can still see myself standing in our kitchen, staring at the radio in amazement when I heard "I Want to Hold Your Hand" by the Beatles. I see myself as a 5th grade kid going, "What is that?" And I never changed. It changed me. I never looked back. I couldn't believe it. I still wasn't. I just started playing the trumpet in schools. I wasn't a guitar player or nothing, but that spoke to me. And I'll tell you what, that whole thing just changed me forever. And I'm not the only person to say that. The Beatles, I mean, and then the rest of the British invasion. It's just genius. I'm such a fan of British music. I can't even tell you, because there'll never be anything like it.
Wow, it's really interesting to hear. I went to a stage school when I was a kid, a long time ago, and the lady who ran it was called Mrs. Collins, and her son was Phil Collins, the drummer from Genesis.
Oh, yes.
He was the drummer, and
Phil Collins
was Mrs. Gabriel, and she was married to Peter.
Oh, Peter Gabriel.
Yeah, a couple of real classics.
Yeah. Well, I started, it was the Beatles initially, and then, and then I, at some point, like several years later, I thought, well, I want to be in a rock and roll band. Well, nobody wanted a trumpet player. So that's when I started playing bass guitar. And then now I'm a Cream fan, I'm a Traffic fan, I'm all the British groups that were the rock bands, but Cream in particular. I played bass a lot then. Loved all that stuff. In the early days with the bands I had with John, we weren't doing that. We were doing more Creedence Clearwater and a lot of the American bands. They're fantastic too, of course, but everybody influenced by the Brits, I mean.
Didn't Cream do that video where they showed all the different faces? Is that the video they done? Different faces? Am I correct in that one? Was that Cream?
As far as Cream?
Yeah, I'm sure. I can't remember the name of the songs. Because I heard in my school doing that, and my sister was one of the faces. I'm sure it was Cream. If my sister let us know, I'm sure it was. There was a video, and they did a montage of faces, a very famous video. I'm sure, I might be wrong.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. But those were, and then later on, so those were early influences, and then I ended up in Canada and playing, and as time, but as I became I became a sax player finally. I just started picking up sax, and the more of a sax player I became, the more rhythm and blues oriented I got. Next thing you know, it's Motown, it's all the rhythm and blues, and now that's where I ended up really going. Although I'm still a huge Cream fan, we do some of that, so I like it all, but I ended up in New Orleans, and that's what really turned me into a sax player.
How many instruments do you play?
Well, I don't know. I mean, a few, but mostly I'm a sax player. I think
42.
But still trumpet. Last week I did the Taps Across America thing. Since I can play trumpet, I played. They were asking all people who can play trumpet to go out and play taps. So I thought, well, I can still do that, and I've done a lot of that, and I will be doing more taps on trumpet. So I thought, well, I'll do it. But I'm a sax player. It's how I really made my living finally as a sax player.
Is there an instrument that you can't play that you would absolutely love to learn?
Yeah. Well, as I look back, I wish I would have spent a little more time on six-string guitar and piano. I don't know anything about piano. I play a little bit of guitar. But I was so obsessed with horns that I didn't spend enough time. I wish I could have spent a little more time with that, but I would say that would be it. Probably guitar. I play a little bit, but not enough. I should have learned a little more guitar. But I'm not too worried about it now. I've got a good guitar player in the band. I just blow my horn.
I've got one more question before the guys come back in. I'm sorry guys. Have you got any advice for young people that wanted to start their own blues band? Any advice?
They want to start their own band?
Own band, yeah. Any advice that you give them?
Yes, get a degree in accounting.
Oh, I thought it was going to be practice these words. Would you like a large fry with that?
No, I'm sorry. You set them up, I'll knock them down.
I love it.
Well, that's not all false.
Like the acting world.
Referred to as a Renaissance man now because I do many things. But if you're going to be a musician or self-employed, period, you better know how to do many things, or you cannot do that. You will be living in like Chris Farley said, you'll be living in a van down by the river. you have to know how to do many things if you're going to be self-employed. And a musician is self-employed. I have many musician friends that they don't know how to do anything else, and you become 60-some years old and you still have to go travel. I don't have to do that. I know many things, so it doesn't hurt to know some other things. But if you are, like for me, it's funny that you said that. For 4 years, I ran the jazz band at my daughter's high school. She volunteered me. So I thought, okay, I'll try it. And so I ran the jazz band. And my model was, I thought, okay, what am I going to do here? I don't know anything about high school jazz band, really. I thought, well, I'll be like Paul Schaefer on the Letterman show, and I'll play with them. I'll stand up front and be this wacky guy who just plays and gives all kinds of crazy cues, and boom, and and the kids loved it. And so we ran the jazz band, and we did really good. We recorded a CD with the jazz band. I got a studio in Nashville to donate the time and the engineer. We did it. It was a great CD. So now you've got parents asking you, hey, my kids, my son, my daughter, would like to have a career in music. What would you say? And I remember saying, well, it's two things. If they think this career in music, if their motivation is so they can, become famous and rich and make all this money and have a beautiful car and a nice stereo system, and then I think they go to college and get a degree in something and have a little band on the side. If they can't sleep at night because all they want to do is play their dang instrument, and they could care less if they're living in a van down by the river, that was me. They have to do that. They have to do it, or they will regret it, and they will never be their full self. But if they're that person and they're not concerned, I don't drive nice cars still. I mean, I have a decent car, but I've spent a lifetime being a musician. I wouldn't say that I got incredible big breaks where some people do get the big breaks, but it doesn't matter. I made a living. They paid me to play a saxophone for 20 some years, and I did fine. But you can't have that motivation. You have to be so happy without the fame and success. If you're not, you'll go to college and get a degree in something and play a little music on the side. There's two ways to go about it. But I was that guy that when we had our little rock bands back in high school, I could hardly go to sleep at night just thinking, God, I can't wait till tomorrow so we're going to practice. And I just wanted that. But I go back to, that's why I can still remember being a fifth grader staring at the radio, just thinking, God, what is that? I want to hold your hand. And I was just like, oh my God, it's the Beatles.
Yeah.
Such a huge fan, and it's passion.
Yeah.
So if the passion's there just to do the thing, you got to do it. And it's like art or music or dance or sports or baseball. I've known some of the kids I've coached in baseball have gone on to be pros, and I still teach baseball lessons, and some parents think their kid's going to be a pro. I get the same advice. The odds are not good. They're poor that you'll actually make it. But I'm not saying you shouldn't try. But
it also helps if you have some talent.
Well, talent is good, but it does. And you got to be realistic. But I will say to that I have seen many less talented people go farther because they work harder. They're not entitled. They want it so bad, they find a way for themselves to play a role. Where the talented person, they didn't try that hard. And then we all go, God, he could have been. He was so much talent. Oh, we know there's tons of those people. I like the people who probably shouldn't have made it, but yet they wouldn't give up. What comes to mind in baseball is a player named David Eckstein, who was like 5'6".
Yeah.
Nobody wanted him in college, but he hung around the baseball team at Florida State, I think is where he went. And finally, he just hung around and did whatever. And finally, maybe he would take a few cuts in the cage or this. And he finally walks on. They win a national championship. Next thing you know, he gets drafted. He's with the Angels. This guy, 5'6". They win a World Series. He's the shortstop. He's just looks like a little high school player out there. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And then he gets traded to St. Louis. They win the World Series. He's the MVP. That's unbelievable. That's the guy that impresses me. Yeah. None of the so-called tools of a major league player, like none. Yet, he's a two-time world champion and MVP. Yeah. It's the all-star team. But interestingly enough, in our society, no one ever talks about David Eckstein in baseball. Still, because he's just not the stereotypical, he's not your Alex Rodriguez. He's not, it's weird. We don't like those guys. I do. I use him as an example always.
Yeah, fantastic advice in all careers.
All careers.
I really do. John.
Well, we've come around the hour here. Chuck only wanted to work part of the hour because he has to get back because there's only so many people that can get into the beach. so we need to let him go. We went a long ways from cruising today, but I think it was maybe the right thing to do because of what's going on. Chuck, Beaker Street Blues Band, June 20th. We will have a link on our page so folks can watch the concert. We wish you nothing but success. We hope you come back sometime in the future, and we'll talk some more.
I will, but right now I'm going to cruise down to the beach. Hey,
That's awesome.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks,
see you
Chuck.
guys. Thanks a lot. That was fun.
See you on
Thanks
the
a lot, guys.
20th.
Thank you.
We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.